Chanting of Jusege. You could either follow along on the screen or there's a purple service book in front of you, which is page 93.
調整が一心無浄土志願不満土成不上昇学我無量光不意大摂取不採小便成不上昇学下士上文の妙正長実法空教未消門成不上昇学二億人少年上映主凡行四愚無浄土一生天にし人力現代語小無差 発電種も放送上万のいよろ実報1月集中期天候音符源一種解放像公正駆読法上大集中説法四式供養一切部具足習得本元年出場満得意三害用如仏無下地通達未不詳願学営利投資最小損志願若国家大戦も感動国書店に東内妙見ナマンダブナマンダブナマンダブナマンダブナマンダブナマンダブがにしくどく明道聖一切道本も大心往生ナマンダーナマンダーナマンダーナマンダーナマンダーナマンダーナマンダー。
We will now have the reading of Three Treasures and Sankyemon.
Please join me with hands together as we recite the three treasures, followed by Sankyemon. Hard is it to receive a human form. Now we have received it. Difficult is it to hear the Buddha Dharma. Now we hear it. If we do not receive awakening in this life, in what life shall we do so? Let us reverently take refuge together in the three treasures of the truth. I take refuge in the Buddha. Together with all beings, may we attain the great way of enlightenment, awakening to the supreme intent of the Buddha. I take refuge in the Dharma. Together with all beings, may we enter the storehouse of Dharma, acquiring wisdom as deep as the ocean. I take refuge in the Sangha. Together with all beings, may we become united at the great assembly, being free of all bondage. Hard is it to encounter the supreme, profound, and wondrous Dharma, even in 100,000 million kalpas. Now we are able to hear and receive it. Let us thoroughly understand the true intent of the Tathagata. Sankyemon. Ninjin ukegatashi imasude ni uku. Buppo kikigatashi imasude ni kiku. Konomi konjo ni mukatte dosezun wa, sarani izure no shou ni mukatte ka konomi o dosen. Daishu moro tomo ni shishin ni sambo ni kieshi tate matsuru beshi. Mizu kara butsu ni kieshi tate matsuru. Masa ni nega waku wa shujou to tomo ni daido o taige shite mujou yo okusan. Mizu kara hou ni kieshi tate matsuru. Masa ni nega waku wa shujou to tomo ni深く教蔵に入りて知恵海のごとくならん。自らそうに消えし立てまつる。まさに願わくは衆生と共に大衆を通りして一切無限ならん。無常人人未明の方は百千万語にもあようことかたし、我今検問し従事することへたり。願わくは如来の真実義を下し立てまつらん。ナマンダブツナマンダブツナマンダブツナマンダブツナマンダブツナマンダブツナマンダブツナマンダブツナマンダブ。
Now Reverend Takata will deliver his Dharma message.
Would you please join me, Gassho? Namu means to take refuge. To take refuge is to respond to the command and follow the call of the two honored ones, Shakyamuni Buddha and Amida Buddha. Namandavs, Namandavs, Namandavs. Good morning, everyone. Thank you very much for attending our Dharma service today. And I'd like to welcome all of you, and a special welcome to those who are attending our Dharma service for the first time. And this year marks the 850th anniversary of our founder, Shinran Shonin's birth. He was born on May 21st, 1163, and also the 800th anniversary of the establishment of our teaching. So I plan to travel to Japan to attend the commemoration service at our mother temple in Kyoto next week. The Shinran Shonin lived in an era of tragedies like we are facing today. I guess the COVID-19 pandemic is almost coming to an end, but so many people passed away due to the pandemic. The pandemic brought not only countless deaths and dying, but has also changed the economy, politics, and even the environment in which we live today. Wars are always going on between humans, between nations, regardless of their scale. Natural disasters, such as earthquakes, tsunamis, floods, storms, etc., are also occurring all the time. Furthermore, social issues that discriminate and look down on people are becoming more serious day by day. In this defiled land of darkness, it is the Buddha who keeps calling us to realize that we are deeply drowning in the defiled passions and inviting us to rely on the Buddha. When we look for someone in the darkness, how can we find the person? In the darkness, we need to depend on the sound, a calling voice. The Buddha manifested in the form of the verbal sound, Namo Amida Butsu, in the darkness of this defiled land, and keeps calling out to us, I'm here, rely on me, I shall save you without fail. In response to the command, we follow the calling voice of the Buddha, Namo Amida Butsu. Thank you for calling me and inviting me to rely on the Buddha. I take refuge in the Buddha, and I entrust myself to the Buddha. The most fundamental word in Jodo Shinshu is Namo Amida Butsu. It is the name of the Buddha, embodying the Buddha's wish to save all beings equally. The working of Amida Buddha's wisdom and compassion reaches us in the form of the name Namo Amida Butsu and enable us to attain emancipation from the darkness of this defiled land. I began my message with the words of our founder Shinran Shonin, and Shinran Shonin said, Namo Amida Butsu. The Namo means to take refuge, and to take refuge is to respond to the command and follow the call of the two honored one, Shakyamuni Buddha and Amida Buddha. And what does it mean to respond to the command and follow the call of Shakyamuni Buddha and Amida Buddha? Before the pandemic, I often travel by airplane to attend a meeting or going to other temples. And I like to share one of my experience at the airport. After clearing the security gate, I was waiting to board at the gate. Then a counter lady announced that the flight was full of passengers, so she requested us to check in carry-on baggage. And after hearing her announcement, many people followed the direction and went to the counter to check in their carry-on baggage. Then boarding started. We made a line to board the plane. A middle-aged gentleman was before me, and he had a medium-sized suitcase. And when he showed his ticket to the counter lady, she stopped him and requested him to check in his suitcase. Then argument started between this gentleman and the counter lady. The big argument was going on, and the gentleman suddenly asked the lady, "Do you know who I am?" I guess he wanted to let her know he was in a high position in his business, company, or community. But the lady replied to him, "I don't know who you are." And because I was behind this gentleman, the lady asked me, "Do you know who he is?" Then I replied to her, I'm sorry, I don't know. And soon after my reply, she grabbed a microphone and asked everyone at the gate, this gentleman doesn't know who he is. If you know who he is, please come up to the counter and let him know. And after hearing the announcement made by the lady, this gentleman got more upset, and all the passengers who were in line for boarding made a big noise to this gentleman to follow the direction given the airline lady to check in his baggage. Then he yelled his complaints to everybody and left the line. As I observed this gentleman, I was made to realize my self-centered nature too. In my daily life, I always tend to emphasize I, my, or mine, and judge, define, label everything through my own self-centered eyes. I always act, speak, and think based on my convenience. If it is convenient for me to accept, I become greedy and support the idea, opinion, or the event. But on the other hand, if it is not convenient for me to accept, I become upset and disagree with the opinion. Thus, I am constantly controlled by my defiled passions. So I need to reflect upon myself, who I am, by hearing the calling voice of the Buddha, Namo Amida Butsu. And the Buddha is constantly calling us and inviting us to follow the command of the Buddha by hearing the significance of the Buddha's name, Namo Amida Butsu, why the Buddha keeps calling us, and why Buddha keeps inviting us to rely on the Buddha. So Namo means to take refuge in the Buddha. In other words, we become to be able to rely on and entrust ourselves to the Buddha by hearing the reason why the Buddha keeps calling us and inviting us to rely on the Buddha. When we are babies, do you think we doubted relying on our parents? I believe we transcended the state of doubt or hesitation and completely rely on our parents by hearing the calling voice of our parents. I'm here. I'm your father. I'm your mother. So Namo means to take refuge. It means to wholeheartedly accept the caring mind and heart of the Buddha. And Namo Amida Butsu, Amida Butsu is the working of the Buddha's wisdom and unconditional love and compassion for us. So the Buddha manifested in the form of the sound, Namo Amida Butsu, and keeps calling us, leave everything to me, I shall save you without fail, and inviting us to rely on the Buddha at all times and in all places. In my story at the airport, the counter lady gave a direction and invited all passengers to follow and check in their carry-on baggage. But the Buddha never asks us what to do, like the lady, but just keeps announcing and inviting all beings to leave everything to the Buddha. And the middle-aged gentleman who didn't follow the command made by the lady is like us, who are always swayed by our greed, anger, and ignorance based on our convenience, and turning our back to the Buddha. In the case of the counter lady, she just let the gentleman who didn't follow the command left. In the case of the Buddha, the Buddha keeps chasing those who don't follow the command and are constantly running away from the Buddha's invitation to rely on the Buddha. When my daughters were little, I always held their hands tightly when we took a walk. If I let go of their hands, I didn't know where they would run away, and they might run into an accident. Similarly, the Buddha is always chasing after us, who are always turning our back to the Buddha and running away, and calling us and inviting us to rely on the Buddha in the form of the voice that calls us, Namo Amida Butsu, rely on me, I shall save you without fail. And one of the devout followers of Shinran Shonin, Mr. Saichi Asahara said, if we catch a cold, we'll have a coffin. Saichi caught a cold of the Buddha Dharma. So I'm coughing of the names, Namo Amida Butsu, Namo Amida Butsu. So when a virus enters our body, we catch a cold and cough. In the case of Mr. Saichi, the Buddha's calling voice, Namo Amida Butsu, reached his mind and heart. Rely on me, I shall save you, and follow the command, and responded to Namo Amida Butsu. Thank you very much, Buddha. I take refuge in the Buddha. I entrust myself to the Buddha. So Namo Amida Butsu naturally came out from his mouth like coughing. Nammandabu, Nammandabu. So Namo Amida Butsu is like the Buddha's wake-up call for us to realize that we are all suffering a catching a cold in the darkness of this defiled land. And our saying of Namo Amida Butsu is itself hearing the command of the Buddha that calls us to rescue us from the sickness. So Shinran Shonin urged us to follow the calling voice of the Buddha and leave everything up to the Buddha. So our doubt of the mind, like clouds and mist in the sky, will be cleared like today's blue sky. So let us realize the perfect guidance of the Buddha and keep hearing the calling voice of the Buddha, Namo Amida Butsu, on why the Buddha keeps calling us and inviting us to rely on the Buddha. And let us respond to the Buddha's invitation to entrust ourselves to the Buddha by saying the name of the Buddha, Namo Amida Butsu, in deep gratitude. So thank you very much for listening. Would you please join me in Gassho? Namanda Butsu, Namanda Butsu, Namanda Butsu, Namanda Butsu, Namanda Butsu.
Now we will have the reading of Ryogemon.
Please join me with hands together as we read together Ryogemon, words of understanding of our tradition. We rely upon Amida Buddha with our whole heart for the enlightenment in the life to come, abstaining from all sundry practices and teachings, and giving up the trust in our imperfect view. There is no doubt that the assurance of enlightenment comes at the very moment we entrust and we recite the Nembutsu, Namo Amida Butsu, in joy and gratitude for the Buddha's compassion. We also acknowledge gratefully the benign benevolence of our founder and succeeding masters who have led us to live in this profound teaching, and we do now endeavor to follow throughout our lives the way laid down for us. Ryoge Shutsugon. Moro moro no zogyo zashu jiriki no kokoro o furistete. Isshin ni Amida nyorai. Warera ga kondo no ichidaiji no gosho. On tasuke sorai to tanomi moshite soro. 頼む一年の時、往生一条助け事情と存じ、この上の称名は言法者と存じ、喜び申し候。この恩断り、弔問申し訳候こと、ご解散承認ご出世のご恩、次第相乗の前時式の朝からざるご関係のご恩と、ありがたく存じ候。この上は定めを課せられるをのきて、一号限り守り申すべく候。ナマンダブツナマンダブツナマンダブツナマンダブツナマンダブツナマンダブツナマンダブツナマンダブ。
Okay, now we've got some announcements. Next Sunday is our Hanamatsuri Dharma service, which is the birth of Buddha. It starts at 10 o'clock, and our guest speaker is Reverend Dr. Nobuo Haneda, who is the director of the Mayada Center of Buddhism. And we invite all of you, especially those of you viewing by Zoom, to come in person to the temple next weekend. And we will be serving lunch after service, so that should entice you. We have several study sessions. First is entitled, What is the Jodo Shinshu Teaching? On Saturday between 11 and 12, and this is via Zoom. The session starts on April the 8th, and this is led by Reverend Takata. Suggested registration fee is $50. Then if you can't join the Saturday session, there's a Wednesday session from 7 to 8 p.m. also by Zoom. And this starts on April the 26th. This is also led by Reverend Takata. Then we have Buddhism Beyond Mindfulness, and this is geared more for college students and young adults, but anyone can join in. The next session is entitled Protecting the Planet for the Future. This is on Saturday, April the 15th from 10:30 to 11:30 via Zoom, and suggested donation is $5 per session. Then on May the 25th, we have Jodo Shinshu, the True Essence of the Pure Land Teaching, what is Amida Buddha. This is led by Reverend Mas Kodani, who is Minister Emeritus from the Buddhist Churches of America. There will be 3 sessions. Registration fee, suggested registration fee is $30. And this will be in person here at the temple. Now also starting April the 9th, we are inaugurating our Dharma Cafe. So this is going to be set up outside in front of our temple, garden area. We'll have light refreshments, offer coffee or tea, and just a chance to hang out with friends. And then also, if you have any questions, talk to the minister or some of the members. Then every 3rd Friday of the month, here in our social hall, we have bingo. And that starts at 7 o'clock, and it'll end when we have our last game. So the time fluctuates. And we do have parking in our parking lot and also light snacks. And then finally, the Southern District BEC is presenting a seminar on April the 21st from 1 to 3. It's entitled Bon Odori, a Uniquely Japanese American Tradition. And this is going to be held at the Senshin Temple, Midtown. And the speakers will be, again, Reverend Kodani and Bessie Tanaka. And if you would like to enjoy a potluck prior to, it will be at 12 noon. So please contact the temple if you would like to attend. So that concludes our service for today. Thank you for attending. We will be having afterwards it's called Dharma Reflection Session, which is led by Reverend Umezu. So if you out in Zoom watching, or those attending, if you are able to, you could please stay for that. And Sensei, I think, call on you. Thank you very much.